Taylor, and I'm here with another verb video. This time we're going to talk about the voices of verbs. We're talking about active voice and passive voice. All right, let's take a look. In our active voice, which is usually the one that's preferred because it makes the actor the subject, someone is doing something. Here's my example. Jordan steals a cookie from the cookie jar. Jordan is obviously the someone who's doing something, so it makes sense that he's the subject of the sentence. The sentence is about Jordan because he's actually the one doing something. If, however, we change things around and we use the passive voice instead, that will put the object in the place of the subject. This is rarely preferred. Something is being done to something. Here's a case where Jordan might actually prefer this construction, though, in the passive voice, because we've removed Jordan completely from the sentence. We don't know who is the person who's completing this action. We're going to say a cookie is stolen from the cookie jar. Something is happening to that cookie. The subject of our sentence isn't doing anything in this sentence. Something is happening to it. That's why we call it the passive voice. We could, however, add the prepositional phrase by Jordan to the end. A cookie is stolen from the cookie jar by Jordan. The prepositional phrase could come anywhere after that main verb to let us know who the real actor in the sentence is, who's really doing something. But a cookie in this case is still going to be the subject because we are still in passive voice, whether or not we know who's actually doing something. All right, let's take a look at this one. Active voice. Parker kicked the ball. If we change this around and made it into passive voice, we would say the ball was kicked by Parker. We've just switched those two things around and put them in a different order. Parker comes first as the subject, but when we have our direct object coming into play as the subject, we say the ball was kicked, and that's when the actor moves to the end. And in this case, I have the prepositional phrase by Parker again at the end. This might help as a particular visual. We take Parker kicked the ball. We have these two items. What we need to do is just make them switch places with each other. This time, we have the ball coming first because it's now going to be the subject, but we've also got to change that verb. The verb kicked on its own just doesn't work anymore. We have to say was kicked, and we'll talk about the formula we made to come up with that verb. And we can't just say the ball was kicked Parker. We also need to add in our preposition, so we turn by Parker into a prepositional phrase. Now we have the ball was kicked, which could be its own sentence, but in this case, we're going to have the ball was kicked by Parker. If you wanted to switch a sentence around from the passive mood, like this one was, into the active mood, all you would need to do is take the object and the subject and switch those right back around. All right, here is that magic formula for coming up with the passive voice. We're going to use be, or a form of it, is, am, are, was, were, been, being, and then we're going to have a verb with an ed ending. Here's the deal, though. The ed ending on verbs, lots of verbs just do not like to follow the rules. So that can change if we have an irregular verb, but we're going to say that most of the time it will have the ed ending. There are, of course, exceptions because this is English, and why would we make things easy? Let's take a look at these sentences. A cookie is stolen from the cookie jar. The ball was kicked by Parker. We have is in the first sentence and was in the second sentence. Both of those are forms of the verb be. And in the first sentence, we have stolen, which does not end in ed because steal is not a verb that likes to play by the rules. In this case, we have an en ending. But for our second sentence, we have the verb kicked, which does have the typical ed ending. That's how we know that both of these are following that special formula to create the passive voice. All right, here's what I want you to do. I'm going to have you guys read through the sentences, and I want you to actually pause the video so that you can give this a try. I want you to try to tell whether each sentence is in the active voice or the passive voice. So go ahead and pause the video now. Write down your answers, and when you are ready to start back up, go ahead and hit play again. You can pause now. All right, and welcome back. Let's take a look at our answers. The cat scratched me. The cat is the actor in this sentence. The cat is actually doing something. We will call this one active. In our second sentence, I was scratched by the cat. I am the subject of the sentence, but I'm not really doing anything in this sentence. The cat is the one doing something, so we call this one passive. In sentence number 3, someone left a pencil on the floor. We don't know who, so we have the pronoun someone. This one is in the active voice. Someone is actually doing this. And number 4, a pencil was left on the floor. This one might actually be preferable to say because we don't know who it was that left it, but this one is in the passive voice. Passive voice, not always going to be preferred, but in this case, passive voice might actually be better than active voice. Here's another example. Senators passed a new law. You might have noticed a pattern. This one is also in the active voice. If we don't know which legislative branch is actually the one that passed the law, where that law is in our Congress, then we might want to say something like a new law was passed, because then we don't necessarily have to have the information. We're going to focus on the law. It doesn't really matter whether that was passed by the Senate or the House. So that would be in the passive voice, and in this case, it could be one of those rare exceptions where passive might actually be better than active. All right, this can get a little bit tricky, but here's a tip that I heard. I believe I read this on Twitter, and I wish I could tell you who it was that came up with this because I think it's great. Here's a key to remember this. Active voice. Humans are active. Passive voice. Zombies are passive because they're dead. Okay? I know you can argue with me. Yeah, zombies aren't really that passive. They do lots of things. Keep this in mind, though. Just think about them as dead. That'll help you with this mnemonic device to remember active and passive voice. Okay? Just think about the zombies. All right, here's what you can do. All of these sentences below are in the passive voice. And if you can say by zombies after the main verb of your sentence, then you have passive voice. The law was passed by zombies. The ball was kicked by zombies. Some lies were spread by zombies. All the cupcakes were eaten by zombies. The string was pulled loose, and we're going to get rid of by kittens and say by zombies. This one had that prepositional phrase by, and then the object. Got to take that out if we're going to add by zombies in its place. But you can use the clue that if you do have that prepositional phrase by in something else, you've probably got a construction with passive voice. And finally, the apocalypse was started by zombies. All right, this has been Verb Voices with Mr. Taylor. Thanks for watching.